Hey everyone, and welcome to this Marvel Snap Beginner's Guide, and we're going to be talking about the top 10 best decks in Marvel Snap for beginners. In this guide, we'll be talking about 10 unique decks of a variety of different archetypes. Let's get started. Now, while we open up the first deck, the KaZoo deck, it's worth noting that you might not have every single card. Series 1 will probably take you 10 to 15 hours of playtime to gradually get through before you move into Series 2. What that basically means is there's a selection of cards that you'll unlock randomly, and that is what Series 1 is. So for instance, if I click on Squirrel Girl here, you'll see it's a Series 1 card. That means that if you don't have Squirrel Girl right off the bat, you'll unlock it within those first 15 hours before you move into something, say like an Iceman, which unlocks in Series 2. So there's different categories and pools of cards that you unlock as you progress through your collection level. All these 10 decks use exclusively collection and Series 1 cards. So first we have the KaZoo base deck. The KaZoo base deck revolves around the idea of using something like an Ant-Man, which gets additional power when you have 4 cards in a given location. Squirrel Girl fills that location by throwing additional squirrels out there. Korg is offering disruption, and then you have the Nightcrawler for the mobility. Angela provides you with some power, and the key combination here is that if you have Angela on the board and you play Nightcrawler on top, you can move the Nightcrawler and play additional cards on top of Angela to ramp up the power. Now, one of the key combinations here, which is kind of new in the past couple of weeks, is that Forge got buffed to provide a +3 power to the next card played. That makes Zoo decks running Mr. Sinister much more valuable, because on turn 4 you have a secondary line. Instead of playing Kazar, you can actually play Forge into Mr. Sinister. Or you can play Forge on 2, Mr. Sinister on turn 3. So there's a lot of different options here that you can kind of experiment with. Finally, generally speaking, in one specific lane, you want to have Kazar because it gives your 1-cost cards +1 power. You want to have Blue Marvel, which gives all your cards +1 power. And then when you drop your Onslaught on top of it, what happens is it doubles the effects of those ongoing cards, Kazar and Blue Marvel, doubling their effects and basically making your whole board much stronger. But if you're missing something like an Onslaught, you can add American Chavez, which is a good substitution. Deck number 2 is all about countering Zoo. Now, the thing about Zoo is in Pool 1, it's definitely one of the strongest decks, but let's say you just don't want to play Zoo, and you're like, nah, Alex, I don't want to play the most popular thing. Give me something that counters the popular thing, and that's exactly what this does. You're going to run something like Elektra, and what it does is it destroys a random 1-cost there. Actually, I have my variant up there. So Elektra is going to destroy the random 1-cost card. I remove my variant, so it's a little easier for you guys to identify the cards. And then you have Korg, which disrupts. Nightcrawler is going to move. Medusa recently got buffed, actually. It used to only provide 2 additional power, now it does 3 in the center location, so it's a pretty damn good card for a beginner deck. But that's not exactly what we're looking for here, where we're trying to counter. Well, that's where one of the... Well, we'll say not the most popular card as you increase your collection level, but the Punisher. As a person zoos into a location, the Punisher gains benefit, increasing in power as they zoo in. It's one of the only times you'll ever want to play Punisher, when you're specifically countering a zoo style play, because honestly, as soon as you're not playing in zoo, Punisher is pretty awful. You're also going to be playing something like a Jessica Jones, which is a nice play and forget style card, but your Enchantress, which removes the ongoing ability of cards in that location, is notable, because if they play a Kazar or Blue Marvel, you can counter that with Enchantress, destroying the effect. Finally, you have the Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman is a very high statted card at a 5/8 that if they've zooed into a location with 4 cards is effectively a 5/12, which is absolutely insane. So it provides you with a lot of vertical power. So if you're looking to counter zoo, this is the deck you try. If you're the kind of person that likes to put straight power into a location to win a game, then this deck's for you, the Power and Value Beginner deck. You have a couple cards that are pretty notable here, and I'm going to highlight Hawkeye, that recently got buffed, by the way, that provides a +3 when it's played there, so it's a 1/4 on turn 2, which is pretty damn fantastic, okay? It's a lot of straight up power. Nightcrawler's mobility, again, you have the Forge and the Mr. Sinister combination we talked about prior. Medusa played in the lane is a 2/5, as long as she's played mid. Now, Lizard takes some special consideration, because Lizard is a 2/5, but if they zoo into it, it becomes a 2/1. What you can do if you find that happening is you can actually make a substitution here. You can take out Jessica Jones and you can add Enchantress. Now, this is why I think substitutions are important. I want to use this as an example, because what happens is, let's say you're against a lot of zoo decks, which you're going to be. If you have Lizard and it becomes a 2/1, that's a horrible effect. However, if you play your Enchantress on top of your Lizard, it removes the ongoing effect, and Lizard remains a 2/5 regardless if they've zooed into it. So you want to do that. However, you got to be cognizant of the fact that you can't play your Enchantress on top of Mr. Fantastic, and you can't play your Enchantress on top of Iron Man. So depending on the meta situation, you decide, do I run Enchantress or do I run Jessica Jones? And that's what the beautiful thing about Marvel Snap is, the variability of each individual deck. On Reveal is one of the most tried, tested, and true archetypes of Marvel Snap, and one you've probably already been experimenting with, so here's a refined list to help you take advantage of On Reveal. What's interesting about On Reveal is it really fixates on Odin as a turn 6 closer. Odin reactivating those On Reveal abilities is absolutely massive, and it allows you to go super wide and super tall in this specific deck. Let's talk about some examples. So the first thing you want to note is going wide. You have cards like Ironheart, for instance, which are a 3/0, but they're basically a 3/6 because they provide other cards with +2 power. Now, when you play Odin on top, it reprocs that +6 and re-affects the entire board state, which makes Ironheart really valuable. So you might want a location that has something like Ironheart, White Tiger, right? And then you want to close it off with Odin, which is really cool. The reason for this is because the White Tiger is going to, when you first play it on turn 5, is going to send a Tiger out. And then when you play Odin on top of the White Tiger, it sends another Tiger out. So there's a lot of value in using Odin to continuously spread power across the board. You also have cards that go really vertical. For instance, on turn 2, if you play Medusa into the center location, if you play Odin on top, you get that additional +3 power again. It's also notable that Wolfsbane will actually proc their effect multiple times if you play Odin on top. So there is a lot of value to be generated here. Now, one thing that I like White Queen for is the opportunity for you to scout your opponent's hand and determine whether or not you want to snap or retreat. It's a very useful opportunity for you to start practicing your snapping and retreating mechanics as a new player in Marvel Snap. I know that discard is a very popular archetype amongst new players entering Marvel Snap, but what I will warn you of is there's a couple archetypes that don't really get good until Series 2 and 3, right? Destroy and discard are kind of like that because you do have a base list where you can play your discard effect. You can use Lady Sif, which always discards the highest cost card in your hand, which is usually hopefully going to be your Apocalypse. You can play a huge Apocalypse. You can play a 6/12 or 16 Apocalypse, and that feels great, sure. But what I will tell you is that it does not have the consistency of some of the other decks. The reason for this is because, like, if you look at Swordmaster, yeah, it's a 3/6, but it's discarding something random in your hand. It could discard your Iron Man. It could discard your Enchantress. And we tried to play cards like Sentinel to keep your hand a little stuffed to reduce the opportunity for you to be completely SOL, one might say. But it is a difficult archetype because if you look at the other cards that come up, and this is a quick lesson in what is coming, but in Series 2, you get Morbius, which is a really beneficial card for discard. You get Swarm, which is a super beneficial card for discard. Ultimately, I think discard feels a little undertuned in Series 1, but if you want to experiment with it, here's a deck that you can try. Much like discard, Destroy is kind of in an awkward spot in early Pool 1, and if you're looking for a Destroy deck you want to experiment with, then this is one you could use. It kind of has to go both ways here with Destroy because it can't fully do the thing it's designed to do because it doesn't have the cards yet. So you have to run something like a Colossus, which can't be destroyed, which sounds counterintuitive, but sometimes you got to play your Deathlock somewhere and you want to keep the power because what happens is in Series 2, much like discard, you start to build new cards. Like you get Bucky Barnes, which when it's destroyed gives you the Winter Soldier. So when you play that Deathlock or that Carnage on top of the Bucky Barnes, you're getting this 2/6 as a result, which is huge. But you don't have that yet. So you need to set up power somehow. So usually what you do is you play the card you want to destroy into other locations. You don't play in mid because you want Mr. Fantastic there. Where you think you need more power, you can play Colossus, then stack it with something like a Deathlock. You have Jessica Jones. So there's different approaches to playing this deck, but it's not quite true destroy yet because you're just missing the pieces that you'll unlock later. Move is a little more functional than discard or destroy in early Pool 1. It's still playable, it's a little more challenging to play, but it can still get you there because of some notable buffs that have happened literally in the last couple of weeks in Marvel Snap. So most notably is Forge got buffed to provide +3 power, which is huge because when played in conjunction with Multiple Man, you basically buff this Multiple Man to a 2/6, and then when Multiple Man moves, whether it be via Doctor Strange, it replicates as a 2/6, which is incredibly powerful. So you have a very incredibly powerful shell for a move deck in Pool 1, and most notably, if you play Multiple Man in a location and then you follow up with a recently buffed Hulkbuster 2, what happens is when you move with Doctor Strange or with Heimdall, that extra 5 power, that 5/8 power, becomes stacked on top and replicates as well with Multiple Man. So of all the archetypes, Move actually got a lot more love than some of the others and is way more playable because of its ability to stack more power and use Multiple Man to replicate across the board, specifically using Heimdall, which can push everything to the left. Now, from a macro perspective, it's important you consider how you position your cards in order to take advantage of the Heimdall effect at the end of the game, because that is ideally your closer. you're running something like a Chavez, not because you want to play it on turn 6, Heimdall's your finisher, but because you want to push up the rest of your cards. The fact that Chavez can only be drawn on turn 6 means that it's more likely that you draw Forge, Iron Fist, Multiple Man, and others on the turns you want to play them, increasing your play efficiency. Ongoing is another core archetype in Marvel Snap that honestly performs pretty well at multiple stages of your Marvel Snap career. In fact, one of the best early Pool 3 decks is an Ongoing deck, and we'll discuss that when the time comes. But ultimately, what you really want is to utilize this Spectrum effect, which is the +2 power across the board. Conversely, you have a finisher in playing Claw into one location, and then it provides the right location with +6 power, and then following that up with an Onslaught on top of the Claw, which gives 12 power to that location while going pretty vertical in that location that the Claw is sitting in itself because of the play of the Onslaught. But ultimately, what you really want to do is go wide with the Spectrum play. One of the challenges is that at early Pool 1, you don't have many ongoing cards. So you try to put a power with like an on reveal card, like a Hawkeye, the mobility of a Nightcrawler. But everything else is on reveal, right? You have the Armor, which is an ongoing, Colossus ongoing, Lizard's an ongoing, Mr. Fantastic's an ongoing, and so is Captain America. One key note for this deck is that you want to always play with Namor in mind. Because with Namor, what you want to do is you want to play Namor into a solo location so that it gets the +5 power. It's pretty notable. Even if you add, say, Claw on top, like it's very hard for them to challenge that location, and Spectrum adds +2 to them as well. So you don't want to like fill your locations randomly, and you don't want to play Namor in mid because that's where Mr. Fantastic's probably going to be. So you want to reserve like the right and left location for potentially Namor so you can stack otherwise. Be aware that Claw cannot be played on the right. Well, it can be, but it sucks because Claw has to send power to the right. So you generally want to play Namor on the right location, right? So bear that in mind. This takes a little more macro practice, but overall it is a very strong deck. The next two decks are for people that are looking to refine their play, rank up to infinite potentially as relatively new players, and push their skills in the game. Now both of these are more combo centric, but they're also very strong decks. Now this one's a little more niche. It's using Strong Guy, which honestly outside of Pool 1 really does not see much play. But in Pool 1, you have limited access to cards, and getting a 4/10 is pretty significant. And if you're looking to rank up, the thing about it is that most new players will not identify Strong Guy as a threat, allowing you to snap and stealing 4 and 8 cubes away from them because they see a 4/4 that suddenly turns into a 4/6 when you play this right. Generally, the strategy is the same as all your other games. Put up as much power as you can. Counter their cards with an Elektra because they're probably playing Zoo. Move your Nightcrawler. Feed your Angela. Play your Wolfsbane to generate some power, and use your KaZoo to spread your power out. Now, you're going to notice there's no 5-drop here. Alex, why is there no 5-drop here? You don't want to play a Vision or anything like that? Well, no, because on 5, what you're doing is you're actually playing down the rest of your hand. You want to empty your hand, including playing Blade, which will discard the last card you've not played, which makes your hand empty. That means on turn 6, you are guaranteed to draw your Chavez. That means that you play Chavez with that 6 energy on turn 6, and your hand is empty, generating that +6 power to the Strong Guy. You play Blade on turn 5 to discard the excess cards in your hand that you can't play. So that is how this deck functions. Devil Dinosaur is one of my favorite cards in Marvel Snap, and honestly one of the most evergreen cards in the game that you can play from Series 1 all the way into Series 5. It's a fantastic card that really never stops seeing play, even in tournaments today. So here's a great deck for you if you're looking to get your Devil Dinosaur practice on, because it's honestly a great card, and I know you know how these first 4 cards work because we've been talking about them today, and you've been experimenting with the Ant-Man, the Hawkeye, the Nightcrawler, the Angela. You get it. So there's a couple new ones here, like Cable, which denies the top card of their deck. You can see what you've just taken. So if you took like their Khazar or you took their Blue Marvel and they're playing a Zoo deck, like you can snap. You know that they don't have the thing that they need to win. You also have cards like Sentinel, which is pretty good. Armor, which is fantastic because as you enter Pool 2 and you get better at the game, you end up facing off against Shang-Chi's, which can just uppercut your Devil Dinosaur out of existence. So the armor protects you from that because as you start getting closer to Pool 2, you're going to start playing against people with Shang-Chi. You ultimately have White Queen, which is a snap, it allows you to snap and retreat more knowledgeably, finding out, okay, what is it in their hand, what are we playing against, and what information can we achieve, while also giving you some additional, prop up for your Devil Dinosaur itself. That's exactly what Sentinel does. It keeps your hand propped up because when you play Sentinel, you get one, so that Devil Dinosaur remains strong. You also have Moon Girl, which is great because if your hand's not being propped up and you have a Devil Dinosaur, you can replicate your hand, you can get 2 Devil Dinosaurs, and on turn 5 you play Devil Dinosaur, and on turn 6 you play Devil Dinosaur, which is absolutely fantastic. Regardless, guys, these are 10 decks that I think can help you in Marvel Snap. If you've enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. I cover the meta every single week. I drop a ton of videos about Marvel Snap. I've been playing since early beta, and I'm happy you're here, and I can't wait for us to go on this Marvel Snap journey together. And if this video was helpful, I would generally appreciate you hitting the like button. It's literally all that YouTube cares about. With that being said, if you'd like to see more content, I got a video for you right there that you can continue watching to help you on your journey in Marvel Snap. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in that next Marvel Snap video.